Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahushua, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahushua, Ba'ashem, Rakakwadash. Double honor to the apostles, the elders. Salutations to you, sincere brothers, teaching in truth and in sincerity. This lesson will be entitled, The Daughter of My People is Become Cruel. Lord, will you are edified. Lamentations 4:3. Even the sea monsters draw out the breast. Sea monsters such as stingrays, whales, and sharks. They give suck to their young ones. The daughter of my people is become cruel. The daughter of my people, which is a representation for Negro women, or so-called Negro women, so-called Hispanic women, and so-called Native American women. Like the ostrich in the wilderness. Okay, if you know anything about the behaviors of female ostrich, they are neglectful. So what they do is they lay eggs and they cover the eggs with the earth, okay? And they leave the location. Once they return back to the location, they forget where they laid the eggs, and therefore they trample on the eggs. Okay, this is an example of neglectful behavior, and our women is become cruel like the ostrich in the wilderness. Okay, case in point. And this account happened sometime last week. Hattiesburg, Mississippi. A Hattiesburg mother is behind bars after causing serious bodily harm to her 3-week-old baby. On Monday, Hattiesburg police were called to the home on Elder Lane regarding a welfare check of the newborn. When officers arrived, Quintasha Portis, 19, was taken into custody and charged with 1 count of felony child abuse. The daughter of my people is become cruel. And she was arrested for doing this. Okay. Let's go to Deuteronomy 28:56. The tender and delicate woman among you, which would not adventure to set the sole of her foot upon the ground for delicateness and tenderness. Okay. Her eye, meaning mind, shall be evil toward the husband of her bosom, and toward her son, and toward her daughter, and toward her young one that come out from between her feet, and toward her children which she shall bear. And this is a result of the curses. Okay. For she shall eat them for want of all things secretly in the siege and straitness, wherewith thy enemies shall distress thee in thy gates. And this happened during 70 AD. And guess what? The same behavior will manifest during Jacob's trouble. Okay. First Kings 3:16. Now, this account happened during the time frame of King Solomon, okay? 1 Kings 3:16. Then came there 2 women that were harlots unto the king, and stood before him. And the one woman said, O my lord, I and this woman dwell in one house, and I was delivered of a child with her in the house. And it came to pass the 3rd day after that I was delivered, that this woman was delivered also, and we were together. There was no stranger with us in the house, save we 2 in the house. Okay. And this woman's child died in the night because she overlaid it, meaning what? In her sleep, all right, she rolled on top of her child and as a result, her child died. Verse 20, and she arose at midnight and took my son from beside me while thine handmaid slept, and laid it in her bosom, and laid her dead child in my bosom. And when I rose in the morning to give my child suck, behold, it was dead. But when I had considered it in the morning, behold, it was not my son, which I did bear. And the other woman said, Nay, but the living is my son, and the dead is thy son. And this said, No, but the dead is thy son, and the living is my son. Thus they spake before the king. Verse 23, then said the king, the one saith, This is my son that lived, and thy son is the dead. And the other saith, Nay, but thy son is the dead, and my son is the living. Verse 24, and the king said, Bring me a sword. And they brought a sword before the king. Verse 25, and the king said, Divide the living child in two, and give half to the one and half to the other. Verse 26, then spake the woman whose the living child was unto the king, for her bowels yearned upon her son, and she said, O my Lord, give her the living child, and in no wise slay it. But the other said, Let it be neither mine nor thine, but divided. Verse 27, then the king answered and said, Give her the living child, and in no wise slay it. She is the mother thereof. Okay, so how did King Solomon know on what woman to give the child back to? The woman that made the sacrifice. All right, she was willing to give up her son or her child in order to prevent her child from being divided. Now, the woman that was not the mother, she didn't care. But the real mother made the greater sacrifice. And look how our women have fallen. Deuteronomy 28:15. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord Yahweh thy power, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses, indignation, which means what? Righteous anger, shall come upon thee and overtake thee. Lord, will you were edified. Shalom.